I was 30 minutes late to Thanksgiving dinner. My hands were dirty from changing a flat tire. The pecan pie beside me had cracked. And all I wanted was to get inside before my daughter became angry. But when I reached her porch, I heard her raising a glass. "To a peaceful Thanksgiving," Megan said. Then she laughed. "Honestly, it would be easier if Mom stopped coming." I stopped breathing. Before I could move, my son-in-law added one more sentence. "We only need her around until she co-signs the new mortgage." They thought I was still on the road. They thought I had heard nothing. So I opened the door, walked to the dinner table, and smiled. Then I made 3 announcements that changed our family forever. Every face turned toward me. Megan's wineglass was still raised. Brent's smile disappeared so quickly it was almost comical. I stepped into the warmth, set the pie on the sideboard, and wiped my shoes on the mat. "Traffic was awful," I said. My voice sounded calm. That surprised me. Megan lowered her glass. "Mom? We were worried." No. They were not. But I smiled anyway. "I'm glad I made it," I said. "And since everyone is already making announcements, I have 3 of my own." The room became very still. "I'm listing my house tomorrow. I'm closing our joint emergency account on Monday. And I will not be co-signing a mortgage, a loan, a lease, or anything else." Megan's face went white. Brent froze with his glass halfway to his mouth. His mother looked down at her plate. My grandson Oliver stared at me, confused. My granddaughter Sophie whispered, "Grandma, are you moving?" "I am," I said gently, "but not far." Then I sat down, unfolded my napkin, and served myself mashed potatoes. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the clock above the kitchen door. Megan sat beside me. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "How long were you outside?" I placed a spoonful of cranberry sauce on my plate. "Long enough." Brent recovered first. He always did. Men like Brent survive by turning other people's certainty into confusion. "Linda," he said, leaning forward. "People say careless things when they're stressed." "I agree." He relaxed slightly. "That's why," I continued, "I'm responding to the truth behind the words, not the wording." His jaw tightened. Megan looked at me as though I had violated a private agreement, as though overhearing their cruelty was somehow ruder than speaking it. "Can we discuss this later?" she asked. "We have discussed it for years," I said. "You asked for money. I gave it. You needed help. I came. You crossed a line. I moved it back. That is not a discussion." "No," I said. It was a pattern. The rest of dinner passed in near silence. I ate slowly. That detail matters because the old version of me would have fled. She would have apologized for ruining the holiday. She would have left hungry and spent the night wondering how to make everyone comfortable again. But that woman had heard her daughter's toast. So I ate the turkey. I complimented the green beans. I asked Sophie about her school play. I thanked Megan for the cranberry sauce. And when Brent tried twice to start a conversation about interest rates, I looked directly at him until he stopped. Before dessert, I stood and put on my coat. "Mom," Megan said, "you brought pie. You keep it. You always stay for pie." "Not this year." Oliver ran to me. I held him tightly and told him I loved him. Sophie followed. Neither child had done anything wrong, and I refused to turn love into a weapon simply because their parents had. At the door, Megan caught my sleeve. "You are overreacting." I looked at her hand until she released me. "No," I said. "I have been underreacting for years." Then I left. The drive home took 20 minutes. I do not remember the traffic lights. I do not remember pulling into the garage. I remember only stepping into the dark kitchen and reaching automatically for the switch beside the door. The room lit up exactly as I had left it. 2 mugs hung beneath the cabinet. One was mine. One had been Thomas's. I had never taken his down. For 4 years, I told myself I kept it because grief had no timetable. That night, I wondered whether I kept it because the life I shared with him was the last time I felt unquestionably loved. I washed the grease from my hands. The water turned gray and circled the drain. Then I sat at the kitchen table and cried. Not because Megan had said I was draining. Not because Brent wanted my signature. I cried because a part of me had known. Every time Megan called and began with, "Mom." I hate to ask. Every time Brent praised my generosity in the same voice he used with bank managers. Every time they assumed I would cancel my plans. Every time I reached for my wallet before they finished describing the problem. I had known. Thomas would have known, too. He had never disliked Brent, exactly, but he distrusted the way Brent spoke about money. Everything is leverage to that man, Thomas once said after Megan and Brent left our house. Homes, friendships, family. He thinks every relationship is a ladder. I defended them. They're young. They're 38. They're ambitious. So is a raccoon in a locked pantry. I had laughed then. Sitting alone at the table, I heard Thomas's dry voice so clearly that I laughed again through my tears. Then I pulled a yellow legal pad from the drawer. At the top, I wrote one word. Enough. Under it, I made a list. Joint emergency account. Credit card. Spare key. Mortgage request. House. Lawyer. Financial records. For the first time in years, my grief moved aside and made room for anger. Not wild anger. Useful anger. The kind that turns on lights. The next morning, I woke before 6. I made coffee, dressed, and drove to the bank as soon as it opened. The joint emergency fund contained $11,400. Every dollar had come from me. The account had been created after Sophie broke her arm 3 years earlier and Megan said hospital bills might destroy their cash flow. I deposited $10,000. Later, I added more whenever the balance dropped. Megan never deposited anything, but she withdrew from it often. $200 for school expenses, $400 for a car emergency, $800 for family logistics. At the bank, a young employee named Daniel asked whether I was sure I wanted to transfer the full balance into an account in my name alone. Yes. Are you concerned about unauthorized access? I'm concerned about authorized access, I said. He looked at me for a moment, then nodded as though he understood more than I had explained. Next, I canceled the credit card I had given Megan. The card had originally been for true emergencies. A sick child, a broken furnace, a car repair late at night. The recent charges told a different story. A salon, a steakhouse, golf equipment, a boutique hotel, 3 expensive lunches, a store that sold imported candles. I stared at the list. For years, Megan had described herself as overwhelmed. I had pictured school fees, groceries, and small disasters. I had been financing a lifestyle. At 10:15, while I was sorting statements at the kitchen table, the back door opened. Megan entered using her spare key. She did not knock. That, more than anything, told me how invisible my boundaries had become. You cannot destroy our plans because your feelings got hurt, she snapped. She was still wearing the cream coat I had bought her the previous Christmas. I closed the folder in front of me. My feelings are not hurt, I said. My judgment has improved. You moved the money. Yes. You canceled the card. Yes. Brent tried to pay for gas this morning and was declined. He has his own cards. That is not the point. No. I agreed. It is not. She paced to the window and back. You embarrassed us in front of his parents. I did not discuss your finances. Brent did. You made it sound like we use you. I waited. Megan crossed her arms. We do not use you. Then my saying no should not create a crisis. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. That was the first crack in the story she had been telling herself. I held out my hand. The key. She looked at my palm. You are serious. Yes. What if there is an emergency? Call me. What if you do not answer? Call emergency services. You're my mother. And this is my house. She stared at me, searching for the woman who always surrendered after 30 seconds of tension. I could almost feel that woman stirring inside me, eager to restore peace at any cost. But peace purchased through self-erasure is not peace. It is surrender with better manners. When Megan realized I would not lower my hand, she tore the key from her ring and dropped it on the counter. It struck the wood with a hard metallic sound. You are ruining our lives. No, I said. I am taking responsibility for mine. She left without saying goodbye. At 11:30, I called a real estate agent named Marisol Vega. Thomas and I had met her years earlier at a neighborhood fundraiser. She was direct, warm, and impossible to intimidate. By noon, she was walking through my house with a measuring tape. You're certain? She asked. I looked around the living room. The house held 40 years of birthdays, arguments, Christmas mornings, flu seasons, homework, music lessons, and grief. There was the scratch on the hardwood from Caleb's toy truck. There was the height chart penciled inside the pantry door. There was the faint water stain from the winter Thomas climbed onto the roof during a storm because he refused to pay weekend rates for a repairman. Selling felt impossible. Staying suddenly felt worse. I'm certain. Marisol studied me. Then we do this carefully. No panic. No discount. No family pressure. The market was strong. The house was debt-free. Her suggested listing price was higher than I expected. I had thought selling meant losing the last thing Thomas and I built together. Marisol helped me see another possibility. The house was not our marriage. It was an asset. Thomas had spent his life protecting me. Keeping the house simply because I was afraid to change would not honor him. Using what we built to create a freer life might. That afternoon, I called my son Caleb. He lived 2 hours away and taught history at a community college. He had never asked me for money, which I had sometimes mistaken for distance. Are you sitting down? I asked. I am now. I told him what I heard. He was silent long enough that I checked the phone. Caleb? I'm here. Say something. I'm trying not to say the wrong thing. Tre. He exhaled. I'm angry with Megan. I'm angrier with Brent. But I'm also angry with myself. Why? Because I saw pieces of this. Not the toast. Not the mortgage. But the way they called you. The way you dropped everything. I should have said something. You are not responsible for managing your sister. No. But I could have asked whether you were all right. That sentence broke something open in me. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was the question I had been waiting years to hear. I'm not all right. I admitted. But I think I will be. I'm coming Saturday. You do not have to. I know. Within a week, the house received 3 offers. I accepted one from a young couple named Priya and Aaron, who were expecting their first child. During the viewing, Priya stood in the nursery that had once been Megan's room and placed both hands over her stomach. There is so much warmth here, she said. I nearly cried. Not because I regretted selling, because I realized warmth was not something a house stored in its walls. People carried it in. People could carry it out. The same afternoon, Brent called. I answered on the 4th ring. You embarrassed me, he hissed. Good afternoon to you, too. My card was declined during a business lunch. It was my card. We had an agreement. The agreement was for emergencies. Networking is part of my job. Were the golf clubs networking? Silence. Then his voice changed. Softer. Reasonable. Almost kind. Linda, I understand you overheard something painful, but you are making major financial decisions while emotional. I made major financial decisions while trusting you. That was the mistake. You are punishing Megan. No. I am ending my subsidy. This affects the children. Then reduce expenses that do not involve the children. You do not understand our obligations. I understand them well enough to know they are not mine. He hung up. 2 days later, Megan arrived with Oliver and Sophie. She opened the back door, remembered she no longer had a key, and rang the bell. When I answered, both children wore backpacks. Thanks, Mom. Megan said quickly. My spa appointment starts in 20 minutes. I looked at the children. Then at Hare. You did not ask me to watch them. I texted. You wrote, bringing the kids Thursday. That is not a question, Mom. Please. I have already paid a deposit. I have a meeting with the movers. You can reschedule. No. The word felt enormous. Megan blinked. What do you mean, no? I mean I am not available. You are packing. You can pack later. I have plans. She lowered her voice. You are punishing the children. I crouched to Oliver and Sophie. I love you both. I will come see you Sunday, and we can make pizza. Sophie looked between us. Are you mad at us? Never. Then I stood and handed the backpacks back to Megan. Today, your mother needs another plan. Her expression hardened. You enjoy this? No. That is why it took me so long. She left furious. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it until my legs stopped trembling. Boundaries are often described as empowering. Sometimes they are. Sometimes, they feel like breaking your own heart on purpose because continuing the old pattern would destroy it more slowly. Caleb arrived Saturday carrying cinnamon rolls, coffee, and 6 rolls of packing tape. He surveyed the boxes in the living room. You have been busy. I have been avoiding the basement. Dad's workshop? I nodded. We went down together. Thomas's tools still hung in neat rows above the bench. Each drawer had a label in his block handwriting. Screws. Electrical. Plumbing. Things I'll need the day after I throw them out. Caleb laughed when he saw the last label. I forgot that. I didn't. We spent the morning sorting. Some tools went to Caleb. Some went to a vocational school. I kept Thomas's hammer, measuring tape, and the small red screwdriver he carried in his pocket whenever something in the house rattled. At lunch, Caleb opened the cinnamon rolls. "Megan says you have lost your mind." "Have I?" He smiled sadly. "Dad would say you finally found it." I looked at him. "You sound very sure." He worried about this. "What do you mean?" Caleb hesitated. "A few months before he died, he asked me to keep an eye on you." "That sounds like him." "He said you were generous in ways that made people lazy." I told him Megan loved you. "She does. I think she does, too." Love and entitlement can live in the same person. That sentence stayed with me. It would have been easier to decide Megan never loved me. Then I could have hated her cleanly. But families are rarely clean. She loved me. She also expected access to my time, money, house, and forgiveness. She had confused being loved with never being told no. Perhaps I had helped teach her that. On moving day, the sky was pale and hard with winter. The truck arrived at 8. By noon, rooms that had held my life were reduced to rectangles of lighter paint and dust marks where furniture had stood. I walked through each room alone. In the kitchen, I touched the place where Thomas's mug had hung. I had wrapped it carefully and placed it in a box marked "Open First." Outside, the sold sign swung in the wind. Megan's car stopped at the curb. She stepped out before the engine fully stopped. "The mortgage was denied," she said. "No greeting. No question about the move. Without your co-signature, our debt-to-income ratio is too high." "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not." The old instinct rose in me. It came with familiar arguments. "She is your daughter. The children need more space. You have enough. What will people think?" Thomas would want the family together. For years, I treated that voice as love. Now I recognized it as fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear that if I stopped giving, I would stop mattering. I let the feeling pass through me. "You and Brent earn enough," I said. "You need a budget, not my house." "We already made an offer." "Then you made an offer using money you did not have. You said you would help us." "I said I would consider it. Then I learned why you were inviting me to Thanksgiving." Her face crumpled for half a second. Then anger returned. "You were not supposed to hear that." "I know." It was the truest thing she had said. She was not sorry for thinking it. She was furious I had heard it. A mover carried a chair between us. Megan stepped aside. "You are choosing money over family." "No," I said. "I am refusing to let money replace family." She shook her head as though I had become a stranger. Maybe I had. Or maybe I had finally become visible. My new home was a 2-bedroom condominium beside a small lake 25 minutes away. It had wide windows, a balcony, and a kitchen much smaller than the one I left behind. The first evening, I unpacked Thomas's mug and placed it beside mine. Then I sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket and watched geese cut a dark line across the water. No one called. No one needed anything. The silence frightened me. For years, I thought being needed meant being loved. When the calls stopped, I felt empty. No emergency. No last-minute babysitting. No one asking for money. I almost called Megan. Instead, I called Marisol. "Did I make a mistake?" I asked. "Which part?" "All of it." "No," she said. "You made several decisions. That feels dangerous when you are used to making none." The next morning, she invited me to a gardening group that met in the community greenhouse. I almost declined. Then I remembered the word I had written on the legal pad. Enough. Enough hiding. Enough waiting. Enough making my life smaller so other people would not have to grow. I went. A week later, Megan and Brent appeared at my door. Brent wore a navy coat and the expression he used when negotiating. Megan held a foil-covered plate. "We brought dinner," she said. The plate contained supermarket cookies. I invited them into the living room but did not offer coffee. Their apology lasted less than a minute. "We regret that the conversation was overheard," Brent said. "Not that it happened. That it was overheard," Megan added. "We were under pressure." Then Brent leaned forward. "We need $10,000 for overdue taxes. It is temporary." I looked at my daughter. She looked at the carpet. Something inside me became quiet. Not numb. Clear. I walked to the desk and brought back a notebook. For several days, I had been reviewing bank statements. I opened to the first page. 3 years, I said. School fees, car repairs, vacations, house repairs, credit card payments, camp, medical expenses, memberships, and cash transfers. Brent frowned. What is this? The total is $47,500. Megan looked up. That cannot be right. It is. We paid some of it back. Show me. We gave you Christmas gifts. I stared at her. She heard herself. Her face changed. Brent reached for the notebook. I closed it. The bank is closed, I said. Sell the luxury car. Leave the country club. Cancel the trip you booked for spring. Do not ask me again. You expect us to destroy our lives over $10,000? Brent asked. No. I expect you to change your spending because of the $47,000 you already accepted. Megan stood. This is cruel. No. Cruel was laughing about using me for a signature. Brent's face hardened. You will regret alienating your daughter. I walked to the door and opened it. What I regret is teaching her that love has no limits. They left. I shut the door. Then I sat on the floor and cried so hard I could not catch my breath. People love the moment when someone finally says no. They remember the perfect line. They remember the shocked faces. They forget what happens after the door closes. I cried. I felt guilty. And for one terrible hour, I wanted to take everything back. I picked up my phone 3 times. The third time, I called Caleb. I said no. I know. How? Megan called me. She hates me. She is angry. What is the difference? Anger can change. Entitlement can change. But only if you stop feeding it. I closed my eyes. What if she never comes back? Then that will be her choice. Not the cost of yours. For 6 months, Megan did not come back. At first, she sent messages. You are missing Oliver's game. Sophie asked why Grandma is mad. I hope your money keeps you company. Each message reached for the same wound. I answered only with facts. I would love to attend Oliver's game. Please send the time. I am not angry with Sophie. I will call her tonight. I am available Sunday from 1 to 4. Sometimes, Megan replied. Sometimes she did not. I refused to beg for access to the grandchildren. I also refused to disappear. I mailed birthday cards. I attended school events when I was invited. I sat several rows away from Megan and Brent, and did not force conversation. When Oliver ran to hug me after a soccer game, Megan watched from across the field. Her face was unreadable. My life changed in smaller ways. I joined the gardening group. I began painting with a woman named Ruth who had been widowed for 11 years and still talked to her husband while cooking. That is not strange, she told me. Marriage trains the mind to speak in pairs. I liked that. I painted badly at first. My lakes looked like spilled ink. My trees looked frightened. My first portrait of a bird resembled a potato with wings. I kept painting. I learned the names of my neighbors. I took a water aerobics class. I drove to visit Caleb and met his students. I traveled with Ruth and Marisol to a spring flower festival 3 states away. One morning, I realized my phone had not rung for 2 days. Instead of feeling abandoned, I felt peaceful. That frightened me in a new way. Peace had always seemed like something other people granted me. Now I understood it could be something I protected. In early May, I received a letter from Megan. Not a text. A letter. Mom? I have started writing this 6 times. I am still angry. I also know anger is easier than embarrassment. Brent and I sold the SUV. We left the club. We moved into a smaller house after the other mortgage fell through. I wanted to blame you for all of it. Then our financial counselor asked us to list every person who had rescued us from a consequence. Your name filled half the page. I do not know how to apologize without sounding like I am asking for something. So I am not asking. I am sorry. I read the letter 3 times. Then I placed it in a drawer. I did not call immediately. An apology can be sincere and still be incomplete. Words begin repair. Patterns prove it. 2 weeks later, Megan called. Could I come for lunch? Will Brent be with you? No. Will the children? No. Then yes. She arrived on a Sunday carrying lasagna in a glass dish. No designer bag. No request. No children waiting in the car. Her hair was tied back. There were tired shadows beneath her eyes. Just lunch, she said. I stepped aside. For several minutes, we talked about ordinary things. The weather. Oliver's reading project. Sophie's missing front tooth. The new house. Then Megan placed her fork down. I miss my mother. I have been here. I know. Her eyes filled. I think I missed the version of you who made everything easy. That version of me was exhausted. I did not see it. You did not have to. I kept hiding it. She looked toward the lake. Do you hate me? No. Why not? Because you are my daughter. She began to cry. I did not rush around the table to hold her. That may sound cold. It was not. I was allowing her to remain inside the discomfort she had earned. For years, the moment Megan felt pain, I hurried to remove it. I apologized. I paid. I solved. I softened the truth. That day, I let the truth stay in the room with us. I loved Dad, she said. After he died, I felt like everything was unstable. Brent had plans. Bigger house. Better schools. Better neighborhood. I kept thinking if we reached the next thing, I would feel safe. And did you? No. She wiped her face. I used you. Yes. The word landed between us. She nodded slowly. I told myself you wanted to help. Sometimes I did. I told myself you had more than you needed. I did. I told myself family shares. Family also asks. She lowered her eyes. I am sorry. I believe you are sorry. Does that mean you forgive me? Forgiveness is not the same as restoring access. Her face tightened, but she did not argue. What do I do? Stop asking me that. She looked confused. I continued. Decide what kind of daughter you want to be. Then practice being her. Not for a week. Not until you need something. Practice until it becomes true. We finished lunch. Afterward, Megan carried the plates to the kitchen. She washed them without being asked. Before leaving, she stood at the door with her hands in her coat pockets. Could I visit again next Sunday? I have plans Sunday. The old Megan might have taken offense. This Megan nodded. What day works? Wednesday afternoon. I can do Wednesday. She left. I watched her walk toward a smaller, older car. For the first time in years, she looked like a person living within the truth of her own life. Trust did not return in one afternoon. It returned in inches. Megan began calling without asking for anything. At first, I waited for the request hidden beneath the conversation. Sometimes there was none. She invited me to Sophie's school concert and saved a seat beside her. She asked whether I was free before bringing the children. When I said no, she said, "All right." The first time she said those words without punishment, I had to sit down after the call. Brent changed more slowly. For months, he avoided me. Then one evening at Oliver's birthday party, he found me alone near the kitchen. "I owe you an apology," he said. "Yes." He seemed surprised I did not rescue him from the sentence. He continued. "I treated your help like income." "Yes. I made jokes because I thought if everyone laughed, it meant nothing was wrong." I looked at him. "Did you believe what you said on Thanksgiving?" He glanced toward the dining room where the children were playing. "Yes." The honesty hurt. It also mattered. "I thought your coming made Megan sad because she talked about her father afterward. I did not understand that grief is not damage." "And the mortgage?" "I wanted the house. More than you respected me." He swallowed. "At that time, yes. Thank you for telling the truth. I am ashamed." "You should be." He nodded. I did not forgive him that night. But I listened. A year after the Thanksgiving dinner, Megan hosted again. She called 3 weeks in advance. "I would like you to come," she said. "But I understand if you prefer to do something else." "Who will be there?" "Us. Caleb. A few friends. Brent's parents." "What time?" "4. And if you are late, we will save your plate." I smiled. "I'll bring pie." On Thanksgiving morning, I woke early and made Thomas's pecan pie. The crust cracked in one corner. I left it that way. At 3:30, I drove to Megan's smaller house. There was no grand staircase, no formal dining room, no imported chandelier. The kitchen was crowded. The children ran to meet me. Megan took the pie from my hands and kissed my cheek. "You came. I said I would." At dinner, Brent stood and lifted his glass. For one terrible second, I was back on the porch in the cold. Then he said, "To family. Not as a resource. Not as an obligation. As people we are lucky to know, even when they tell us no." The table was silent. He looked directly at me. "I am still learning that." I raised my glass. "Su ung yi." After dinner, Megan and I washed dishes together. She handed me a plate. "Do you remember last year?" "Every word." "I wish I could take it back." "You cannot." "I know." I dried the plate and placed it in the cabinet. "But you can keep choosing what comes next." Later, the children asked me to tell a story about Grandpa Thomas. For a moment, I heard Megan's old complaint. "She talks about Dad, and it drains everyone." I looked at her. She pulled out a chair. Tell the one about the raccoon in the pantry. So I did. Everyone laughed at the right part. Even Brent. Driving home that night, I thought about the woman I had been 1 year earlier. She believed love meant endless availability. She believed saying no was a form of cruelty. She believed a mother's value was measured by how much she could absorb without complaint. I wanted to reach back through time and take her hand. I wanted to tell her this. Kindness needs limits. Help needs accountability. And love should never require you to disappear. I did not break my family on Thanksgiving. I broke the pattern that was breaking us. Selling the house did not erase Thomas. Closing the account did not make me selfish. Taking back the key did not make me cruel. It made every future yes honest. That was the lesson I had avoided for most of my life. A yes has value only when no is allowed. Today, Megan and I are not perfect. Some subjects still make us careful. Trust still has seams. Brent and I will probably never be close. But he asks before assuming. Megan manages her own emergencies. The grandchildren know grandma loves them and also has a life. And I wake each morning beside the lake with Thomas's mug hanging next to mine. Sometimes I still speak to him. You were right. I told him one morning. In my memory. He smiled. About what? Everything being leveraged to Brent. That sounds like me. And about learning to do things myself. I looked out at the water. The first light was touching the trees. For years, I believed changing a tire was the most important thing Thomas taught me about helplessness. I was wrong. The hardest thing I ever learned to do for myself was stop volunteering to be used. I still love my daughter. I still help when I choose. I still bring pie. But I no longer buy my place at the table. And if anyone ever raises a glass to a more peaceful holiday without me, they are welcome to have one. I will be at home. Beside the lake. Living a life that no longer requires me to beg for a seat.